The dark cosmos. Stay cosmic.
A week had passed since I lost my job. I used to be at the top of the world. The Epic Labs were financed by the US government and celebrated all around the globe for our commitment to securing the well-being of the world for future generations. To be fair, the labs weren't completely terminated. There were still hundreds of people hard at work protecting and recuperating our planet Earth. Alternative agriculture, reforestation, ozone layer repair, protection of the oceans, cloning of endangered species. All the miraculous projects were thriving. Except for us. I was the problem. Only my project got terminated. Only my team got thrown out onto the street, mercilessly and without giving us a second chance. But I guess not even in the most technologically advanced organization in the world, people understood my job. The world just wasn't ready to hear about time traveling. For 1 week, I hid in my apartment. I ignored everyone's calls, and I tried to cry or drink away the shame of being disregarded like a madman or an ingenue. But also, I was tortured by the knowledge that firing us was a huge mistake. It would be a great loss for humanity. We were so close to a breakthrough. The only thing stopping us were the most frivolous administrative barriers, exaggerated safety protocols, and lack of funding for our specific department. We should have been the #1 priority of the Epic Labs and the world. Time travel could have been the most successful solution to all our problems. We could have determined exactly the things that would be our downfall and returned in time to fix them without wasting our efforts on anything else. And yet, there I was, locked away in my small apartment, wondering how on earth I was going to find another job, move on, give up my greatest passion, and somehow survive this deadly blow. A month ago, I thought I could save the world. And now, I didn't know if I could even keep myself alive. That was until, one fateful night, there was a frantic knock at my door. I immediately knew who it was, because only 2 people in the world still cared about this as much as I did. What I didn't know was that opening my door that night would be like opening Pandora's box. I slithered from my depressive cocoon on my couch, begrudgingly turned on the lights, and opened the door to face the only friends and colleagues I had left. The people that led the time travel project along with me until our untimely end. Nicholas grinned like a little kid, like he always did when we were about to hit a breakthrough. But Rebecca's beautiful face was unlike any other time I had ever seen her. Our brilliant leader had her eyes open wide, with gray bags underneath, and her hair was slightly messed up. She told me, "Pack your bags, Isabel. We're going to finish our work. Nothing will stop us this time." "How, Rebecca? They kicked us out," I asked her. "You'll have to trust me." "We lost everything," I reminded her. "How on earth could we keep going?" "I have my methods," Rebecca smirked. "Now go on. We can't waste another minute." Well, I had nothing else worth fighting for in my life. These people and this project were everything to me. I did as Rebecca said. I packed my bag, locked my apartment, and followed them to Rebecca's car. She ignored my questions as she drove through the dark streets. I guessed that she couldn't explain it or didn't want to answer. It was well past midnight. Nicholas tried to start a conversation with me, but he couldn't answer my questions either. He knew just as much as I did. Unless there were some answers, nothing he could say could pull me out of the darkness that embraced me since we got fired. At some point, as my anxiety and Rebecca's silence intensified, I started to fear that Rebecca was just going to drive the three of us off of a cliff. And I wouldn't even mind. It turned out that she was going to do something quite similar, just far more complicated. Rebecca drove us to the edge of the city, and then she made a sharp turn down a road I had never even noticed. It's along a part of the city I doubt most people even knew about. The car was swallowed by the profound darkness of a small tunnel. Our headlights were the only light around. I saw a couple of doors along the walls, but no other signs of life. The eerie road was unsettling enough to quiet down even Nicholas. The silence was deafening. I swear even the temperature dropped. Finally, Rebecca parked the car in front of a door, seemingly at random. Her car was blocking the road, apparently careless of anyone else ever coming down this secret underground sector of the city. She unlocked the heavy metal gate, still avoiding her eyes. And Rebecca said, "It's best you don't ask too many questions. Just know that our emergency funds for the project were put to good use. And if we're lucky, no one will bother us until we are done. And we finish what we started." When she finished, Rebecca pushed open the door, stepped to the side, and turned on the lights. Immediately, Nicholas and I gasped. A wide, empty space was illuminated. It was like an underground warehouse. The sides of it were filled with diverse piles of trash. I suspected we were in the company of rats, cockroaches, and all sorts of ghosts from local myths. However, at the very center of that large room, there was a shiny heaven. It was a nearly identical replica of the center of our laboratory back at Epic headquarters. It had 2 desks, heavily packed with computer gear. There was an examination table at the center, lights above, and an engine the size of a small car right behind it. Somehow, Rebecca had arranged to bring all of our equipment to this strange location. It was beautiful, and it was highly illegal. This doesn't seem like you, Rebecca," I said. "You never went against the regulations back at the labs." I mean, you are the most lawful person I know. My hands were shaking, though. After a week of hopelessness, I was nearly knocked down by the force of the spark of possibility that this unlikely opportunity offered. I told her. "I mean, this is unauthorized. This equipment doesn't even belong to us. Working with this, it violates so many of the safety protocols. This is insane. I know," Rebecca said with a heavy sigh, rubbing her temples with the pads of her fingers and frowning at me. "The risks, they used to drive me crazy. You know me, Isabel, but not anymore. Believe me, we have a miracle in our hands. I believe that without the barriers of government officials, we can make this work. Do you really care about the risks? What else do we have in our lives but this? I'm all in if you are. At the same moment that Rebecca took my hand, we heard a loud rumble coming from the center of the room, directly from the engine system. "Well then, what are we waiting for?" Nicholas shouted as he continued to turn on the machines that all of us knew like the back of our hands. "Yeah, let's get back to work!" It was exactly the war cry we needed. The three of us got to work with seamless efficiency. We turned on every computer and every piece of equipment. We went through the most advanced computers the year 2025 could offer. We prepared and carefully reviewed the code we had been working on for years. We double-checked every little inch of the exam table and disinfected every part of the tools that would come in contact with the human body. The leather straps that would keep the subject tied to the table. The half a dozen electrodes that would connect the bodies to the rest of the system. And then we carefully reviewed the medical equipment at hand that would make the difference between life and death in case something went wrong with the experiments. Less than an hour later, we were done. "This is it," I said. "This is exactly how we left things." "What do we do now? What can we possibly attempt next all by ourselves? I mean, we have no more resources. They've completely cut us off." As I talked, I ran my hand lovingly over the top of the computer's screen, wiping away the dust that had gathered over it. This project was the love of my life. I let my family and friends fade into the background of my existence, believing I was doing them a favor and that my work would save their lives. But I just lost them all anyway. There was a lump in my throat whenever I remembered the despair of losing everything. "Isn't it obvious?" Nicholas said, laughing lightly and walking toward me. "Now, we travel in time. We test the whole thing ourselves." The simple idea gave me goosebumps and a spark of adrenaline, but I was wary of getting my hopes up. I had to shake my head and scoff. We can't. We have never successfully completed a trip to the future. You know this. We weren't ready. Except that we were, Isabel. We actually were ready, remember? The only reason we couldn't move forward with the experiments was because the fucking cowards in the executives room were slowing us down. God, the idea of continuing our project by ourselves was tempting. But there were too many risks, right? I told Nicholas. Yeah, we were ready in theory, but not in practice. We were supposed to test it on animals and slowly move on to willing volunteers. And now we don't have the means or the time to do that. But, we were never meant to experiment on ourselves. You know that if one of us dies, the whole thing will be ruined. We can't take that risk, can we? Then I turned toward Rebecca, pleading with my eyes as I felt my resolve crumble down and my growing spark of hope started to replace my reluctance. And I told her, Rebecca, please tell me we aren't doing this. You've always been the most sensible person in the room. Just say the word and I'll forget about this. But If you don't, you know I'm going to lose my mind and go all in with this insanity." Rebecca was quiet for a long moment. She had studied the dangers of this experiment better than anyone else. But then, she smiled at me. "Isabel, I'm ready to die for this project, if that's what it takes," she said. "What do we have to lose that they didn't already take from us? Doubt the people at Epic Labs will take us back. But someone will. We'll get the credit we deserve. You know it's all I ever wanted." I had never heard her talk about her ambition so fiercely, and it was slightly unsettling. I thought what we always wanted was to save the world. But I had to admit, Rebecca's confidence was contagious, and her ambition was inspiring. I took a deep breath and said, "We can still save the world." "Hell yeah!" Nicholas cheered and then moved quickly toward the exam table. "Are you sure?" Rebecca asked him, even though she was already moving toward the controls, prompting me to move to the table to prepare my friend for the greatest adventure of humankind. "Of course I am. This is fucking exciting. You know I'm the perfect subject. I guarantee I have perfect health. I trust you both with my life. And you know I'm the most expendable of the team." "You know that's not true," I told him. My hands were shaking as I tied the leather straps around his limbs, securing him to the table. "You are essential to this project, and I admire your courage, Nick. And the systems are ready. Recording is in process," Rebecca announced. It was essential to the experiment to record a log of the process. So she went on to explain it all as if it were the first time. "As you know, the time travel system works similarly to a defibrillator. We'll give you an electric shock, the right amount of energy we calculated, which combined with the unique kind of power we personally created for the system's engine, will transport you to the future. According to our research, the electric shock will put your body through a fissure in time. That should follow the regulations we'll determine on our computers. You'll exist simultaneously on 2 planes of time. We'll watch your body over here and bring you back prematurely if we detect any complications. But out there, you'll be vulnerable and on your own. Injuries will be real. You could die on both planes at once. So, for the love of God, Nicholas, be careful, all right?" There was a brief pause as we processed Rebecca's words, but then Nicholas nodded his head, looking as serious as this young genius was capable of. "I'm ready, boss." Then it was my cue. I finished checking the electrodes on his body and explained, "We have to confirm that our form of energy won't be detrimental to the subjects. We will have to do 3 experimental shocks to test the reactions of your body, all right? The force of the shocks will augment each time until we reach our goal." "Sounds perfect. I'm ready. Come on, there's no time to waste," Nicholas said. "Technically, we have all the time in the world," Rebecca said with a grin. Then it was my turn. I took a deep breath, moved my hand to the right button at the center console of the machine, and said, "Okay, first shock, test number 1. Minimal charge of energy. 3, 2, 1. I pressed the button, and instantly we watched Nicholas's body shake wildly on the table for just a couple of seconds. Funnily enough, the suspense made it feel like time stopped for a moment. And then, well, Nicholas started laughing. "What, was that all? Come on, you can do better than that," he said, as cheerful as ever. But of course, I noticed the way his voice was shaking, and it was only the minimum charge of energy available. I should have recognized that first red flag back then. But I didn't. Blinded by the joy of being back to work, I restarted the system. Then I warned him. Nick, we've increased the power of the electric shock to almost twice as hard. Are you ready? After receiving his agreement and Rebecca's approval from the other side of the machines, I said, all right, second shock. Test number 2, medium charge of energy in 3, 2, 1. This time, Nicholas's body tensed unnaturally and trembled far harder and much longer than before. When it was over, he gasped for air as if he had been drowning. I saw his hands still shaking, and I started to sweat and frantically check his vital signs. Oh, okay, that one kicks a little harder, Nicholas said, sounding a little breathless. Then he noticed my expression of genuine worry, and he reassured me. Oh, but it's nothing I can't take. Come on, keep going. We are so close. As soon as we complete the tests and reach the exact measure of power to use, we won't have to do this again, right? That's quite right, Rebecca said, going ahead and preparing the system for the next round. Nicholas, we can stop if this is too much, I told him. We could take a break, Rebecca said. I wish she had agreed we could stop it all, but I guess that taking a break was a good enough solution. No, it's fine. I'm fine. Let's go. Third shock. Test number 3. 3, high charge of energy. I'm ready. Well, I couldn't fight him. We were colleagues and equals. I just nodded and did the countdown. 3, 2, 1. Nicholas's reaction, well, it was unlike anything I could have anticipated. His body shook so violently that if it weren't for the leather straps keeping him tied to the table, he would have fallen off. The straps were surely going to leave angry red marks on his skin. Tears streamed down his face. He looked ghostly pale for a second. I thought my own heart would stop beating right along with his. But there was no stopping the reaction of his body. The lights flickered above us. His body kept convulsing. The seconds felt like an eternity. And still, I failed to see the complexity of the threat in front of me. He's all right. He's all right, Rebecca reassured me. This time, however, Nicholas couldn't speak or move right away. I ran to his side and wiped the tears off his face. This brilliant man was like a little brother to me. And there we were, as I put him through hell in the name of science. Nicholas was breathless, sweating, and still trembling from head to toe. But he managed an unsteady smile. Looks like I survived, he said, coughing a little as he tried to recover. Barely. We have to call this off, I said. Absolutely not, Rebecca interrupted me, completely taking me by surprise and moving toward us. If he was able to endure the 3 tests, that means the real discharge won't kill him. Or any of us. You know that the actual shock for time travel won't be stronger. It'll be a different and steadier supply of constant energy. It worked. It worked, Isabel. This is safe. You must trust me. Her words were a strike of lightning that reanimated my body and my faith. Trusting Rebecca had always been the easiest thing to do. She put safety before everything else. If she said this was the right thing to do, then I guess she must have been right. So, I raised my head and looked at my friends and colleagues, the people making history with me, and I said, "Let's do a trip for 5 minutes?" 5 minutes sounds good, Rebecca agreed and clapped her hands while Nicholas tried his best to cheer while still being somewhat rattled by the test. Rebecca moved back to the computers and added the necessary calculations to the system. 12 hours from now? We'll give you 5 minutes at noon tomorrow. It's a good first try. What do you say? Nicholas took a deep breath. He was thoughtful for a moment, and then he said, "If I don't make it, if I die, don't give up because of me. Don't stop working. Don't let my death go to waste. Figure out what went wrong and try again. Finish what we started." What could we possibly reply to that? Words failed me. Nothing I could say would ever be enough to explain how the mere idea of his loss made me feel. All that Rebecca and I could do was nod solemnly and send him off with a smile. After receiving a positive gesture from her, I announced the beginning of the most important moment of our lives. First official attempt at time travel, starting now. Trip number 1. Destination, 12 hours from now. Duration of the trip, 5 minutes. Traveler, Nicholas Myers. All systems ready. Going in 3, 2, 1. A loud crackle of energy took over Nicholas's body. The lights overhead and the rumble of the engine blinded and deafened us for a second. And then, he was gone. Not technically, his body was still right there, only from up close. We could see the proof that everything worked. Nicholas's body was seamlessly hovering about an inch from the examination table. It worked. God damn it, it really worked. He was unconscious, but his vital signs were steady. His body was stiff, buzzing with electricity. But we had to hope that it was perfectly safe. We had really done it. We perfected time travel. Rebecca and I cheered like it was the best day of our lives and hugged for the better part of Nicholas's first minute in the future. But then another minute passed. Then another. And I couldn't help the anxiety gnawing in my chest. The questions spilled from my lips as the clock ticked. Do you think he's all right? What if something went wrong? What if our code was imperfect? He could be in the past, or too far away in the future, or stuck there longer than 5 minutes. What if this place is gone, and we transported him to somewhere unsafe? Rebecca rushed to my side and put a hand on my shoulder, and another on the back of my head. She looked me in the eyes and said, "Isabel, I trust our work. He trusted us. It's your turn to believe that we did the right thing. If you think we sent him to a hole in the ground or a dangerous location, let me tell you that this is one of the oldest constructions of the city. There's no way they will demolish this road in 100 years, let alone in 12 hours. He's in a safe spot, I'm sure. Come on, just one more minute. I know he can do it." The suspense was suffocating. I already felt like a murderer. And it was even worse because underneath all that apprehension, I was just so fucking excited. I waited my whole life for this moment. I had never loved anything like I loved this project. I felt alive like never before. As guilty as it made me feel, I knew at once that even if Nicholas died, I would do as he said. I would continue working. My troubled thoughts were mercifully interrupted, though. One more spark of energy made us jump in place, and we turned toward the examination table. The first thing we heard was Nicholas's laugh. It's going to rain, he said, fighting with his uncontrollable laughter to explain. Oh my God, tomorrow at noon, it's going to rain, and I know it. I saw it. Jesus Christ, I was right here. Everything looked the same, so I went out on the road. This tunnel is annoyingly long, but I started running, and when I made it outside, it was raining. I kept running until I reached the gas station we passed before turning here. I picked up the newspaper and, you know it, October 5th, 2025. Tomorrow's date. We did it! What followed Nicholas's trip? Well, it was a dream come true. We cheered, laughed, cried, and hugged tightly. I helped Nicholas get off the table so he could fully recover from the trip, but there was no time to waste. I couldn't hold back my excitement. I faced Rebecca, and leaving behind every ounce of hesitation in my body, I said, "It's my turn now." We moved quickly to get everything ready and put me in Nicholas's place. When I was prepared, I heard Rebecca say, "Second official attempt at time travel starting now. Trip number 2. Destination October 11th, 2025. Duration of the trip 15 minutes. Traveler Isabel Callahan. All systems ready. Going in 3, 2, 1. It was an indescribable feeling. My body warmed up, but the electricity wasn't painful. In the blink of an eye, it felt like waking up from a nap, energized, but just a little confused. I was in the same exact room, even at the examination table, but my friends were gone already. It was 24 hours into the future. Everything looked almost exactly the same. The dim lights, the equipment, the abandoned room. I have no time to waste, though. I ran out of that place and down the tunnel. It was night, and the streets were mostly empty. I was quick enough to reach the gas station down the road. The adrenaline pumping in my veins made me feel like I was flying, and then I saw it. The newspaper's on a stand at the gas station. October 11th, 2025. I made it. I was in the future. Just as I realized that, I felt my body warm up again, every inch of my skin tingling in a way that I would quickly familiarize myself with, and then... "We did it!" was the first thing I said when I came back to myself and the present. It was the next day. We really did it! I had never seen my friends as happy as they were then. And this was only the beginning. It was the strangest kind of party I could have imagined, with just 3 scientists in an underground lab. It was like every bit of success was... it was a drug. We were unstoppable. We were high on the glory of achieving the impossible. It became a time-traveling marathon. Trip number 3. Destination November 4th, 2025. Duration of the trip, 30 minutes. Traveler, Nicholas Myers. Trip number 4. Destination, October 4th, 2026. Duration of the trip, 1 hour.
Trip number
Traveler,
6,
Rebecca
January
Cruz.
1st, 2030.
Trip
1
number
hour.
9, August 30th, 2035. Trip 13, December 10th, 2045. 1 hour. It was exhilarating in ways that no one could possibly understand, because there wasn't another soul in the world as invested in this as we were. And the consequences, at first, were nothing short of delightful. Trip after trip, we returned with news like, "Quick, write this number down. We're going to win the lottery. Like we were little kids playing a game, instead of the scientists committed to saving the world that we were supposed to be. Do you have any idea how much money I can make betting at the Super Bowl every year from now on? Forget about money. You'll never believe the technological advances I just witnessed. Better than hovering vehicles, holograms everywhere, and artificially enhanced body parts. And also the end of your favorite show, by the way. But then something changed. When Rebecca traveled to the year 2055, she came back different. She didn't say much, nothing important really. Just repeating things about tech improvements and world politics. But I could tell she was trying not to smile. We had agreed to avoid looking for ourselves in the future, but I suspected she had found out something important. The final clue was that she tried to convince us to stop traveling. We've done enough tests. This works. Now we need to focus on finding a buyer, she told us, bringing back her goal of getting someone to give her the credit she was due. I flinched at the word buyer. This wasn't just a product. This is something that could change the world. So I told her. Come on, just one more trip, please. 10 years more. Let me go to 2065, take a quick little look, and then we'll be done. Yeah, one more trip couldn't hurt, Nicholas agreed with me. But then he held out his hands so we could see how badly he was still shaking. But maybe it is really time to stop. We should probably do a little medical checkup, huh? Rebecca took her time before answering. I assumed that she was back to calculating the risks and trying to protect us. But after enough insistence from my part, she agreed to give me the hour I wanted. I just needed to know what she had seen. When I was ready, I lay down on the table and listened as my friends sent me to take a look at the promising future ahead of us. Final time travel trip. Destination October 4th, 2065. Duration of the trip, 1 hour. Traveler, Isabel Callahan. All systems ready. Going in 3, 2, 1. Waking up in the future was still a surreal experience, mostly because I didn't feel any different, yet suspected that I should. It was just me lying on the cold floor of the same underground room as always. But the first sign that there was something wrong? Well, I wasn't alone. Who's there? Hearing those words hit me like a brick. My fear was immediate. That rough and intimidating tone was not from the kind of voice that would welcome a stranger. Regardless of time travel logistics, I immediately moved to my feet. Most of the room was still dim, but now there was some light sneaking in. I assumed that for some reason windows were added to the place. I tried to be discreet, but when I heard footsteps somewhere behind me, I started running. This was new. Strange. But I should have expected it at some point. The whole city had changed. It made sense that our hideout was not so private 40 years later. So I tried to keep calm a little longer. That's when I opened the door, and my perception of the world was instantly transformed. Our hiding place was no longer underground. Gone was the tunnel we drove down 40 years ago, and the doors across the road. Everything was turned into rubble. Large piles of rocks and cracked cement, walls broken half. So many cracks on the ground, dark, gray, chaotic, and destroyed beyond recognition. Shock made me foolishly stand still for too long, and I didn't even hear someone coming up behind me until they crashed into my back and knocked me to the ground. The fall knocked the air out of my lungs, and the rubble cut my cheeks and the palms of my hand. Rough hands turned me around, to face a man who could earn anybody's fear at first sight. He was middle-aged, with a thick beard and scars all over his face. He was pointing a gun at me. "You have 10 seconds to give me a reason not to kill you," he said. I couldn't speak, and I struggled to breathe. This was a nightmare, and I would be trapped here for 1 more hour. If I died in the future, my body would die back home too. "Please," I begged. I have nothing to offer. I'm not from here. I swear. I'm from the past. I traveled in time." It was a wild and probably hopeless explanation, but against all odds, I saw recognition in his face. "Time travel. Who do you work with?" He spat at me, continuously looking over his shoulder, making me notice the group of followers paying attention to him and moving closer to us. "Rebecca Cruz and, Nicholas Myers," I stuttered. "Rebecca." The man laughed and instantly got off me, even offered me a hand to help me stand up. "I remember Rebecca. She told the army to back off when they tried to kick us out. She told me and my people to watch over this place. Nothing happens on these streets without my permission." I got the impression that the last bit was a warning. "Is she still alive? What about Nicholas and me?" I asked. At this, the man shrugged and held his gun a little tighter again. "She's barely alive," he said. "But none of her coworkers survived the test on time traveling. She was the only survivor." "What? No, that can't be," I exclaimed. But I had to shut up because there he was pointing his gun at me again, and his followers started pulling out knives and makeshift weapons. "No survivors," I said. He barked at me, but got distracted, talking as if he enjoyed someone new listening to him. "Besides, no one fucking cares about time travel anymore. Rebecca turned it into teleportation. Now that's useful. That's how you get a whole army across the world in the blink of an eye." Of course, I understood. Rebecca let us die. Maybe she personally killed us. She betrayed us and our project for credit and for profit. She didn't care about saving the world. When a weapon turned out to be more profitable, she moved toward that and facilitated the destruction of the whole world. The strange man finished his explanation by snapping his fingers, and I complimented his demonstration by punching him in the face and sprinting away from there. He lost his balance and reflexively started shooting as he fell backwards. The bullets flew past me, and his people started chasing me. I could hear him yelling after me. "Follow her! Catch her! Do it for Rebecca! Defend your territory!" I ran as fast as I could. Luckily, the ruins of the city were disastrous enough for me to lose the violent crowd chasing me, hide in dirty corners, drag myself over trash, broken buildings, and long-gone victims of wars that I couldn't imagine. But that now I knew with certainty that they would happen eventually. I ran, hid, and bled for 1 hour as I experienced the consequences of a war that I wouldn't be alive to see. Unless I did something to stop it from happening. I found myself at the top of a small hill made up of the ruins of a house, with fallen walls and furniture turned into rubble, overlooking the tragic remnants of my city. Whatever Rebecca did with her life, it would destroy even her own home. I was still standing there when the hour ran out, and now a familiar shock of energy brought me back to October 4th, 2025. I lay still, frozen, speechless, and staring at the ceiling. "So, how was it?" Nicholas asked me as he approached me with a smile, reminding me that I would have to do anything in my power to protect him too. We had to survive this time around. "Was it worth it?" Rebecca asked me, smiling too, even if her eyes weren't as warm as I remembered them. This was exactly what I wanted to ask her. Was it worth it? Getting rid of us and abandoning our project to go after anything that would bring her more profit, regardless of the lives she'll ruin. I don't know if she saw in 2055 the consequences of her actions or just her success, but I knew what I had to do. "We might have to make some changes," I said with what I hoped was a reassuring smile. I wasn't yet sure what I could do to change the future, but I was determined to find out. The first step would be keeping myself and Nicholas alive, while being wary of all of Rebecca's moves. I'll need to protect the integrity of this project. Or destroy it, if that's what it takes. I have to intervene before Rebecca becomes someone willing to create a weapon for massive destruction, even if that means on this timeline. It'll be my turn to be the one to kill her. Hey sci-fi horror fans, it's Teresa. Thanks for listening. If you enjoyed this story, make sure to give it a thumbs up and leave a comment. And remember, stay cosmic.